Well, hello, everyone. This is Damian Andrews, also known as Brandon Bones, the owner of the MVWF, a simulation league that I've been doing for over 20 years, going all the way back to, the original PlayStation and WWF Attitude. And the creator wrestler that was there, that came with that game, that you could pretty much make just about fucking anybody on those games and stuff. And even before the MVWF had even gotten started, we were just doing like an NCAA tournament style thing with tag teams and stuff like that, with wrestlers from from behind each side of the forbidden door, and celebrities and musicians and whatever, what have you. That being said, it evolved into doing a routine wrestling federation. Like a bunch of my friends had gotten together. They all made themselves. They got their fingerprints all over their own guys and stuff like that. Granted, by this point, we had pretty much graduated to the N64. I think I had traded my PlayStation for the N64, which just seemed to have more me-style games on it, seeing so the PlayStation was becoming like the first-person shooter. I mean, the whole impetus behind all of this shit is just that, like, I'm not particularly good at video games, and some of my friends are, and some games I was decent at, like some like the Rush games and stuff, and you do like the trick tracks and stuff like that, and some of the bonus levels and stuff. I was pretty good at that shit. But as far as like fighting games and things like that, one-on-one type stuff or whatever, none of that shit really worked for me. Racing games and stuff like that, shit was kind of rough, right? That being said, we decided to make an entirely different approach to creating a straight-up simulation league called the Match Vegas Wrestling Federation. And at the time, there was probably, maybe not even a dozen of us and stuff like that. There's way more of us now, all sitting in on creating our guys from the ground up, both in appearance, choosing all of the moves and stuff like that. We had some established moves and or established rules anyway, about the approach to things and stuff like that, and some of the intentions that were to, help kind of drum up the controversies and stuff like that, and build heat for the matches and stuff like that. And that's what I'm here to do today. I know we're looking at the sliders right now and stuff like that, and that is going to play a really big part of it. But I'm going to try and see if I can kind of like weave the tapestry here for you, the viewer and stuff, to see if you're trying to create your own simulation league and stuff, that maybe we can do something here to show both in the reality of what your function is, and the people that you have in front of you, and the desire it is of what you want to accomplish, versus the kind of things that you're kind of limited in. And of course, if you've been watching the MVWF, you know that the technology itself is, I'm pushing it as far as my ability to kind of like do the whole thing all the time exactly the way I want it to. The broadcasts have been interrupted due to breaks in this streaming stuff. The game, old versions of this game would just stop in the middle of the match and just stare at a turnbuckle. So there's all kinds of like hurdles and stuff like that the technology that we're using here in the software is going to prevent us from doing just about everything that we would want to do, or the booking approaches that you would use when you actually had a locker room full of people, versus essentially funneling all of this through a video game. Because I essentially still have a locker room. Because most of the people in the MVWF are actual real people who had to some degree, varying degrees of say in how their guy looks and performs. And so to try and beef up the credibility of the show, because ultimately my goal as a producer for this show is to try and make it sell like an episode of Monday Night Raw or a pay-per-view or something like that, or a television broadcast. That and again, the lack of camera cuts and stuff like that. Again, the software is somewhat limited, kind of random in what it offers you a lot of the times and stuff like that. And it's also not entirely reliable as far as being able to successfully produce a full-on show. this past weekend here, I mean, we had an episode that would have been about probably the longest episode the MVWF has ever done, about 5 hours or so. I would imagine maybe some of the Phase 1 stuff that goes back to the GameCube and all that stuff before, we were actually streaming and all that stuff back in the aughts. I'm sure probably some of those shows probably went on pretty long and stuff like that. But, there were smoke sessions in my living room and stuff with all the boys coming over and stuff. And now y'all don't have to do that anymore, right? And I'm trying to make this, make this play, make this work right, to give me the authentic television experience so that, it's not just kind of like the rock'em sock'em robot of just trading punches back and forth, the way you might expect, an older, undeveloped video game or something like that might do and stuff, I mean, again, imagine like if everybody was the person who was sitting there watching someone else playing video games. And getting over that hump is something that I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to get around here and stuff. And in a lot of ways and stuff, it's, to accomplish that and stuff like that, a lot of the easy part is the creation of all of the wrestlers and the roster and stuff like that. I mean, I may not necessarily authentically get everyone's face looking, ziggity zag, zippity zap right on point as far as like, like photorealistic presentations of all of my friends, because I'm also not doing any of that like face scanning stuff that you're seeing on community creations and stuff like that. But anyway, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. I basically kind of want to start from the beginning here. And first off, I guess I'll just deal with some of these, what we've got in front of us here on the screen, which is the sliders and then all of the settings in the options menu. Now, of course, one of the things I really also want to do pretty much all of the time and stuff is to have quality matches that are interesting to watch, build characters, give me positive results, while at the same time also adhering to the absolutely time-honored tradition that there are no predetermined winners in the MVWF. I mean, there are definitely settings that you can make to give someone an advantage, but that in no way, after over 20 years of doing this, guarantees you a victory, that no matter how lopsided the sliders are. I would imagine maybe with some of the more advanced ones that you'll see there in that last menu there, that, and those are more just like preferences for the menu categories of moves that the characters will choose to do in the matches and stuff like that. And then you fill in those, those moves, whatever these are, under those categories and those menu options later on. But as far as like, making it lopsided to where certain characters and stuff like that have high levels of attribute points, like say in the slider categories that are pertaining to the particular individual character, well, that's one thing and stuff like that I have experimented quite a bit with, but I'm going to also get to that a little bit later as well. So here we've got on the gameplay menu here, I've got it on Legend, I've got it on Simulation and stuff, and in a lot of these slider videos that I've seen on YouTube and stuff, I've seen a lot of the suggestion, especially coming from people who do AI matches and stuff, to do it on hard level and stuff. And this was definitely one that I had going back all the way towards the beginning of the MVWF, because one of the things that they say, like, for guys that if you want them to lose, but you don't want them to lose all of their credibility, is that if they do lose the match, maybe one of the things that you can choose to do is that how you book the finish is they like slip on a banana peel. They make a mistake, a lapse in judgment that may not necessarily be entirely reflective of their character. Well, I mean, hard level will give you probably a lot of seriously lengthy matches, and also generate some of those situations where those types of things can happen. Quite frankly, since I've done the 2K games, going back to 2K18, I should say, I have kept it pretty much on Legendary at this point. And a lot of those situations have still managed to manifest themselves. Although in a lot of cases, a lot of the slip on a banana peel type scenarios that have occurred in the last 5 years have been like with like referee incompetence and things like that. Which, forced me to create the crooked referee angles and things like that you've seen over the years. So at the moment, I'm keeping it on Legend and stuff. I'm going to continue on with that. Also, keep in mind, too, that as these games have developed, I mean, I really think I had, back in Phase 1, between the 64 games, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy and stuff that we used for years, and then the 3 GameCube games, meaning I think it was... I just want to say WrestleMania 18 and the 2 Day of Reckoning games. I think that's what they were called. I mean, because after all, those WCW games were entirely garbage, so I could not use any of those. So, I mean, I pretty much buy every wrestling game that comes out to try and see and measure its potential for it being like the base, a game engine that's going to run the MVWF. And unfortunately, the AEW game, I don't think really rose to that occasion, even though, boy, does it really reek of nostalgia in aesthetics and the way that it plays, very similar to the N64 games. In fact, if you want to know a little fun secret here, I have never actually played any of these 2K games at all. Like, I've never really done any matches where I tried to fucking play through. I might have tried once or whatever to like look at maybe some of the campaign mode or whatever there, where there's like a storyline. It's like, oh, I'm homeless, I live in a van. No, I want to be a wrestler. The BS, that shit. Anyway, so outside of that, right here, we've got a bunch of other things here. Rope breaks. I mean, rope breaks are more slip on a banana peel type stuff. Things that, aren't necessarily what you would see in like a Street Fighter type game or whatever, but something that could be there to, to extend the length of the match. Circumstance. Realistic circumstances. The ace up the sleeve, something that, holy shit, does the thing that really turn the tide on things here. Of course, blood is going to be on, run-ins are on, though in universe mode, boy, it doesn't really do a lot of that stuff unprompted. I mean, very rarely do we even get cutscenes in universe mode under a lot of the settings that I have for it. But again, we'll get to that later, too. Of course, blood is on because... I mean, the Manch Vegas Wrestling Federation was always a hardcore federation back in the day and stuff like that, so motherfuckers gonna bleed, and that's just how it is. All right, so moving along here. So the HUD is off. We want all of like the video game stuff off here, so none of the HUDs are on display here. I've got camera cuts on it, camera shakes. It really doesn't do the camera shakes very often as far as being an issue for me and stuff, so I've kind of left it on for kind of dramatic effect, because every once in a while it kind of rears its head in like a very dramatic submission potential finish or whatever, where like all of a sudden it's something, it makes the screen kind of shake a little bit and shows that there's a visual representation of the stress that's being applied in the submission hold and stuff. Camera panning and stuff like that. Again, I don't want a static hard cam up in the stands all the time and stuff, and I'm hearing that 2K24 actually has some choices of both your hard cam of like where it's positioned in the arena. I remember the Day of Reckoning 2 had a couple of them, but I didn't really fuck with them too much because one of them had kind of like this Fire Pro angle that I really liked, but I only use that on very rare occasions and things like that, because up until that point, I think we had been stuck with an aisle cam the entirety of the 64 games and stuff like that, and so I was always kind of lamenting not being able to see the crowd. And then when the GameCube games came out and it gave you kind of a traditional TV presentation hard cam, then I felt like the lack of camera cuts became a lot more obvious then, I mean, it still did a fair amount for big spot moves and stuff like that had seemingly camera cuts attached to them. But yeah, it didn't always pay off that way. So I'm hearing that, like I said, that you have some choice or whatever where you can actually do some live cuts during the match and stuff like that. I don't know about the quality of the camera angles and stuff like that of the little bit that I've seen of it, but I guess we'll see what happens with that shit in the future and stuff. I am going to stick with 2K23 for a little while longer here. assuming that that the show doesn't continue to be burdened by interruptions in the broadcast or game crashing. Or remember, I had this game, I just did not have access to it for several months and stuff like that, from trying to get the PlayStation to recognize that I had a game that was called 2K20. I don't know. It was a long story short. I eventually got it back after doing about like 3 or 4 rounds with customer service with 2K. But anyway, camera panning is on. Post-match replays are on. And I have heard a lot of criticism of the post-match replays. I have a lot of criticism of the post-match replays. They've been a lot better as of lately when it comes to choosing which moves to highlight in the post-match replays. I will go for like a second bite at the apple sometimes when you've got like the highlight reel after the matches and stuff like that, just so I can, squeeze a little bit more out of the impact of things. But man, like in years past and stuff like that, like a kick to the leg, is not a fucking highlight of the match. Maybe the finish, maybe the 3 count, you'd think. Maybe somebody jumps off the top rope outside the ring or off of a cage or gets crashed into the cage. Stuff like that should be where the game is focusing its highlight reel, but it doesn't do shit like that. So I leave it on and stuff like that, and just in the off chance and stuff like that, having it for the sake of broadcast reasons and stuff like that, regardless of its quality and stuff like that tends to kind of serve a purpose. Run-in breakout HUD, I guess it's on. I don't fucking know. It doesn't. I haven't done any run-ins as of yet. I might as well just fucking turn it off, quite frankly. Display referee counts. This one I want. Just because like the referee can be kind of like such a non-presence during the broadcast sometimes, or that like if I'm using like some audio sweetening with some extra crowd noise and shit like that I might drown out the referee's voice during the match and stuff like that. So anyway, so I leave that stuff on, and it helps me, during the broadcast and stuff like that. It gives me a visual rep and stuff like that. And I get you can call me on like, versus, doing all of like the player HUDs and stuff like that this, doesn't sell it as a live broadcast the way it should. And I would definitely agree with you there. But there is kind of like a practical purpose to it or whatever that compels me to kind of keep it around. Watermark image, it's just putting an image in the corner somewhere, so no harm, no foul there. Has really no impact whatsoever on your show and stuff like that. I guess it is one more thing, because again, when I'm creating arenas, when I'm setting up universe mode, when I'm trying to build my roster and stuff like that, I'm trying to do everything that I can to mute and or eliminate as much as possible all WWE presence, all advertising presence that I can, to try and make it authentically as much the MVWF as I possibly can manage. And so even though like I don't necessarily go out of my way to like upload images and stuff like that to community creations and stuff like that, or try to create my own logos the way some folks do, and hats off to them, because this is just a kind of a side project sort of thing that I do for fun. Again, I don't ask anybody to subscribe. I use so much copyrighted material that it's not even close to being fucking monetized. I cuss like a sailor. I'm high all the time. The piss clamps, the ass necks, all the random shit that fucking happens. Anyway, moving on. So balancing is where we're really starting to get into kind of like the murky waters, because like I said before, when I would deep dive on YouTube videos and trying to see other content creators to see what they had to say about the definition of what these sliders really mean, I don't know what they mean 100%. Some of them kind of give you a decent, definition of what they mean and stuff like that. But again, sometimes I can't really say I always know. And if you're looking at all the what I got here and stuff like that, well, this is what the setting was for the last event, or last bunch of events, because I haven't touched this since I finally got the game back here. So yeah, like stamina cost on things and stuff like that. I suppose I could turn some of this shit down, right? If there was anything to kind of want to compel me to to turn it down from legendary to hard mode and stuff like that, is that there has been a absolutely stark difference between 2K22 and 2K23 in the behavior of the characters when they're on screen, because holy shit, do they die hard. I mean, everybody is fighting to the death in these games and stuff, and so I think that, like, it's with the addition of some of these more advanced settings and stuff like that, because again, these settings are not the same as the last bunch of settings on, like, the last 2 or 3 games and stuff like that. This was probably the biggest turnaround for additions and subtractions and stuff like that, and changing, the fine tuning of the sliders and stuff like that. It's really given the creator and stuff like that a lot more stuff to kind of ponder over as far as what these things really amount to and stuff, right? So if you haven't noticed, and I've definitely noticed, that some of the recent events and stuff like that have had a lot of fucking high spots in them. Holy shit, the dives, the springboards and stuff like that, they are out there. They are not particularly set that high. I mean, I guess a 50 out of 100 dive. I mean, again, when you're looking at all of the rest of them and stuff here, I mean, it's not like it has, like, the, I mean, I guess motherfuckers are going for finishers, I suppose. They don't seem to be, even at 58, nobody seems to really be going for their finishers that often. So I think your approach to this should be kind of like seen from this perspective. The game will behave in a certain way, and you're going to have to kind of like tailor it around all of that, based off of so, like, the characters are going to be on the ground a lot. They're going to get slammed, they're going to get thrown, they're going to have to sell for a minute, which means you're going to have someone standing, someone on the ground, a whole lot. So if you want to do, like, ground strike, reversal rates, ground grapple type stuff or whatever, and you want to, like, keep it so that things are a little bit more even-steven there, or that if for nothing else, maybe being that you've got somebody in the dominant position, that we should turn some of these down a little bit here, then to kind of like sell the realism. Well, that's something that, because again, guys are gonna your characters are gonna be like on the ground a lot, right? Say a lot more than they're gonna be standing on the top rope or standing on the top of a cage, so the likely scenarios of where these guys, you're going to want to spend a lot more time talking about grappling and stuff. Maybe I want to turn this down a little bit here, because, I mean, standing face-to-face, strikes, grapples, and stuff like that is definitely going to be something that is going to be a more likely scenario of where these characters are going to be spending their time when they do. Now, I mean, this is really nitty-gritty stuff right here, as far as, like, really, I mean, from someone who has been breaking down the behaviors of the AIs of these particular games for a long, long time, and then once you figure out there's kind of like a baseline idea of how these games operate, and then tailor it around with your sliders at that point. Because again, I mean, when you buy the game and stuff and everything is just 50, 50, 50, 50, 50 all the way down and stuff, that doesn't really work either. Because I want to rewind now back to Season 1, when, so back in 2018, 2019 or so, when the MVWF finally came back. I'd had a limited amount of experience with some of the SmackDown versus Raw games over the years when the MVWF wasn't really around, because we stopped around, like, 2008 or so. And then didn't do any events for many, many years until about maybe 2018 or so. I didn't really give much credence to anything other than the difficulty level. And so that way, where everything was just 50-50 through everything, I was heartbroken because there was a Key-Man, Ryan Crawford, Brandon Bones match that ended with like a kick to the back of the leg. 1, 2, 3 pin. Like, it was like a title change. I was like, that fucking sucks. Like, that is not what I wanted at all, And so I started to dive into it a little bit with not a lot of really strong perception about what a lot of this stuff amounted to. But I think I've gotten closer than I did, and I've done some research, and I've listened to some other people kind of comparison shopping on their approaches to things and stuff like that. But again, weirdly enough, though, a lot of the people that I've listened to and I'm not naming names, and I'm not saying anybody's stupid or whatever, but they didn't really give me a lot of the definition for these things that I was really looking for. Like, if I do this, plus or minus, how will it be reflective, right? Now, stun duration basically kind of like, speaks for itself. But I'm like, what's a vitality regeneration cooldown, right? Well, I've come to learn, actually based off a video that I just watched before I started broadcasting here, is that, like, you have a vitality to your guy, and he, once he runs out of it, he's going to have to cool down for a little bit before he finally regenerates. And so both of these and stuff like that ended up being the kind where you wanted maybe a little bit more than average. And I think he had them about like 60. All right, okay, I guess. AI difficulty damage scaling, drag escape difficulty. I don't want to make it too easy because, again, at this point, when you're in a vulnerable position, you should be in a vulnerable position. You should be selling in a vulnerable position. I have noticed that rollout frequency is something that probably happens a little bit more than I would like, so I'm going to actually lower this significantly down to about 25, so like a quarter out of 100 here and stuff like that, because, man, like, everybody was diving out of the ring and stuff like that during that main event, and it made the match go about 45 minutes when it probably should have gone about like 25, 28, So anyway, stun recovery rate. So I guess this one fairly defines itself for me here, as along with stamina recovery rate. And so these are ones that I'm going to turn down to be a little bit less than average here and stuff, because, again, these, or maybe I could make things cost more in stamina, and then make the stamina recovery rate just be that much faster. Let's try that. So I'm going to go stamina cost 68. I'm going to leave those two right about there. Weapons reversals. I hate weapons reversals. I mean, in games past and stuff like that, you get about maybe 3 shots before somebody finally swats it out of your hand. I want people to chase the big moves in my matches and stuff like that, so I have the reversals up a little bit higher than normal, than about 50-50 here, because, again, I want everybody to hit those big moves. And then I think what I'll do to kind of compensate for that is I'm going to find, where is the AI finisher reversal rate? That's a little bit higher. So once I get to, like, the finisher, strength, because there should be a finisher strength on here somewhere. Now, these reversal windows are... They're harder to kind of like figure out in the respect that, like, the understanding of them is based on actually having the HUD displayed on the screen, because the reversal windows will be bigger because you have like a little thing that slides back and forth that you're supposed to like hit the pinpoint when it when you hit the button. You're supposed to catch the area that's moving in the little block there. So that like, and if you catch it and you get like the little thing in the middle to go right in the middle of the thing that's moving, so you hit the target, then your reversal works, right? Or you kick out at 3, at 2 or whatever, or you kick out of the move. It just widens the chance of that happening. So I think I'm going to probably turn these down probably just a tad here. And probably, maybe we're just good. I think because again, I am flying blind on this sort of stuff here. Again, I don't have like a thorough understanding of what these things mean, but based off of the limited knowledge that I feel that I know that I have here, then yeah. So I'm thinking that this should make reversals a little harder to do and stuff like that, so that you actually have more of the ebb and flow during a match, of like longer stretches of the dominant wrestler having control of the match. Then it will be, a big twist of fate or turn of events and stuff like that to, bring it back into the opponent's side or whatever, where they will perhaps have a run, and then either there's a comeback, a finish, or something like that at the end of the match, to wrap up the match. Now, targeting and stuff like that is one that I think is pretty much mostly dealing with for those that are playing. But these ones down at the bottom here, I have noticed. Well, let's see here. So targeting teammates and stuff like that. I think I've pretty much already seen a lot of that already. But boy, like in those tag team matches, sometimes it has gotten kind of distracting, which makes some of my commentary a little bit more challenging because I don't know what to say in those types of scenarios. It's just like, well, the guy's just not fucking doing the match anymore. Like there's been a couple like matches with the family and stuff like that have gone that way. Where they were just attacking somebody at ringside. I've had a number of matches where the referee was just completely obliterated numerous times. So I'm turning all that stuff off. I mean, I might, as a novelty and stuff like that, turn it on somewhere later on down the line for the sake of something different. But I think it's not the kind of thing that you want to have happen every day. Because again, you're also going to try and like book your stuff in respect to. Are you doing a weekly show? Are you doing a show that's like more like the MVWF is these days, where it's like a once every 4 to 6 weeks sort of thing? And then when you do that show with that amount of time in between, there's really no building up to anything or anything like that. So you have to kind of like build within the big show itself, and then also make that show a big event unto itself. So like you just can't have like the referee being attacked every match. You can't have the tag team matches where one of where they're just attacking one guy at ringside all the time and stuff like it fucks it up. All right, now this is where shit really starts to get a little hard for me because this is a lot of the newer stuff here. And I think basically that whatever I have here for because I mean you see they've got them categorized. You've got 2 sets of sliders here, but one set here at the top is for if you're playing the game and you're and everything through your controller, versus what you would do if you were doing AI. And I would imagine that if I'm setting these AI settings here, it's for both sides of the match, or at least I would assume as much. So I have kind of left these as is and stuff like that, but I think I will once I finally go through here and stuff like that. If I decide to change anything here, I might just go ahead and just move all of these to make them identical to the AI stuff here. Just in case. So let me explain what I've got here and stuff. You can see I've already gone through here because everything's 50-50 when you download the fucking game. Recent finisher influence, previous finisher influence, 3 times over, and of course one's for the signature, and post kick out damage recovery. Now, you can see here that this one must have been the one that I poured over the most because it's the one that I gave the most points to. Post kick out damage recovery, so somebody kicks out of, like a finisher, or after they get like a long 2 count on them and stuff like that. The crowd pops and stuff like that, which feeds into their momentum, thus feeding into their recovery and raising the chances for them to actually mount a comeback. Well, I've got this fairly kind of high for that kind of thing, because again, I don't want my finishers and stuff like that to be like dead ends and stuff like that. But I do want kind of like this staggered thing where like all of the moves that the guy is known for and stuff like that, we go, well, there's that one big move, this is an even bigger move, and perhaps the biggest move that they can muster and stuff like that should be the one to end everything. That's where you get up to stuff like here, like this. So the way this guy kind of explained it here and stuff is that actually this might be the first finisher, the second finisher, and the third, or maybe he got it the other way around. If this is the first one here, then yeah, it's definitely one you want to have like the least amount if you're talking about like a main event type match. But after about like 3 finishers and stuff like that, if you got hit, if the match were to continue, it shouldn't be because they kicked out. It should be some other influence on the match, like the referee being down or interference from outside the match or something like that. So, as you can see here, I've got slightly bigger numbers here for the finishers than I do the signatures, because again, I do want them kicking out of the signature moves because it's a tier down and stuff like that, as all part of kind of like the build-up and stuff, right? Now, also another thing to keep in mind when you're talking about these here too is that this is the kind of stuff that you also want to remember when you're building your guy and going through their move set and stuff, because if you have all the lower tier grapple moves and they're all fucking power bombs and pile drivers and shit, well, you're not really setting yourself up, for big climactic finishes in your matches and stuff. You really need to kind of stagger that stuff, Now, granted, there are different approaches to how you start those things, and a lot of that can be the result of the different fighting styles when you create your wrestlers and stuff like that, so that every match doesn't start off with a grapple move, every match doesn't start off with a strike exchange, every match, doesn't start off with someone doing the same thing all the time in every match, because again, eventually all of this stuff is going to translate into universe mode, where you're going to book an event, right? And so you're looking for those types of matches where there are fighting style contrasts, a clash of styles that hopefully produces something really good. And these games, and keep in mind, in real life and stuff like that, it's probably a lot harder to make that kind of thing work than it is here and stuff, because you can always rely on your guy to be your guy because you created them head to toe. There isn't going to be a lot of the fucking lights aren't going to go out, in the arena and stuff like that, and you're still going to keep broadcasting. Well, in my case, stuff, the lights go out all the fucking time, but that's also a result of knocking out the broadcast. And difficulties with the software here and stuff like this is going to be something I'm going to talk about in a little bit here. So now we've looked at the sliders and stuff like that. I've made some kind of selections here and stuff as far as what I'm doing here, because I definitely need to get in here and make some tweaks to it, because there were some things that I was seeing in some of the recent events and stuff like that that I really didn't much care for and stuff. Now let's get into move sets. All right, so move sets, attribute points and stuff. One of the things I really want to impress upon all of you here, and here's a good look at the roster and stuff as it stands. El Sharko, there's Father Peace, Brandon Bones. We've got all the VWA guys, all the ex-presidents, Hot Liberal Wife, Jimmy Controversy, Enormous Genitals, Kevin Welch, Kurt Maple. There's the Selesky, Nixon, the Mighty Nixon, Doyle, the Butcher, Stab Hurley. Of course, so we get Stephanie somewhere in here. Where Space Hooker is there. Very Mortal Hulk Hogan. Looks like everybody is still there. Right off the bat, when I got 2K23, I was already starting to have problems, even before the game just totally crashed on me in the middle of an update, was that this game also has a little bit of a habit of just deleting guys off of the fucking roster here. And of course, it's real easy in the muck of everything to just kind of miss, someone missing from whatever, because, they're all, you change, modify the name in some way or whatever, and, it deleted a couple of my guys and stuff like that. Most recently, it deleted Brandon Bones right off of it. And so, fortunately, this time around, I had everything uploaded to community creations and stuff like that. One of the things I really got to figure out is how to also get my move sets up there as well, because how to update those guys, because I know y'all do that shit, but I have not been able to figure it out. Keep in mind, I turned 50 this year, so I am technologically impaired. So the fact that the show is even as remotely as successful as it is kind of a fucking miracle. Anyhow, so when it comes to picking move sets and stuff, let's see here. What am I'm not really using. This is the Father Peace version that was in the Battle Zone that I actually had uploaded to community creation. I'm going to go look at the one that I have now that I've actually been using as of late. Actually looks a lot more like me than the other one does. All right, let's look at Brandon Bones' attribute points and stuff. Now, back in the day for the 64 and stuff, and boy, was this kind of a controversial thing and stuff. All right, so really the only thing that I had to go off of in all those days was the fact that, well, I had the difficulty setting, and I had maybe like 2 or 3 different things and stuff like that that I could use to be like the individual characters' settings. And there was a famous match. It was Hardcore Holly and Rock Holly against Alex Kindbud and Nickelbag, Nathan Love, who is the brother of Jerkin and J Love. And I had taken Nate's character that he had created off of his memory card, and he had his guys' max settings and stuff because he actually plays the game. And everybody had to have a weakness, and usually either whether it was in, stamina or, whatever the fucking, you had to have one weakness and stuff like that. And I've always kind of adhered to that stuff because, again, slip on a banana peel, circumstances don't always go your way in wrestling and stuff like that, so that it's not just a fighting game. And so, as you can see here, I have a lot of the offensive stuff at an absolute minimum. Aerial range doesn't really do much to boost your character's impact, but, if he's going to do some aerial moves and stuff like that, he ought to hit him. Submission offense, also at a minimum. But Brandon Bones also has really high reversal stuff because he's a veteran, and he has minimal deductions in durability. Keep in mind, most everybody has maximum durability in their body and stuff like that. But in this case and stuff, I wanted Bones to have a little bit of the edge taken off here in defense and stuff like that. He is hard to pin for sure. I mean, because he's definitely a top tier guy. Keep in mind also that there is a pecking order in the MVWF, and some of the legacy guys that are in the MVWF might have these kinds of attribute points and stuff. Bones is on his 3rd clone body, so he has super strength. He's got great stamina. He's got great agility. He moves fast. He recovers fast. His specials, however, are submission holds for the most part. So I like those to be kind of dramatic. Okay? And ultimately, it gives me like a fucking total form and stuff like that only comes out to be about 71 points. And to me, that's not too fucking bad, right? When Adrian Knight asked to join the MVWF, I mean, I downloaded his character off of the community creations, and he had all the maximum attribute points and stuff like that. And I explained to him, like, listen, if you have any corresponding moves that belong to somebody else, certain characters have certain moves, and then there's certain menus that are so small and stuff like that between the choice that you have when I have a roster of like 70 characters and stuff like that. Of course, there's going to be some overlap there. You can't fucking avoid it. But when you're talking about like, finishers and stuff like that, I mean, holy shit, you've got to, right? And so Brandon Bones has the Goodnight Irene, and he's got the Green Mist and the punt kick and stuff like that, right? So he's a cheating piece of shit. He uses basically a chokehold and stuff like that, to put his guys down and stuff. You see, he's got a few other things outside the ring and stuff like that, or to change it up. He's got some tag moves, blah blah blah, right? Brandon Bones is a top tier main event talent. Now, he might have a lot more going for him in this regard than, say, like, some of the newer guys or whatever. But then again, Brandon Bones is also wrestling frequently in those kinds of matches and stuff that are main event style matches, or a featured match, or, a big time, a grudge match or whatever that would be like a semi-main event on the card, Bones has to have that shit. That's just how it is, So anyhow, so he's got some stuff out there. Of course, his unique taunts stuff. I mean, I swear I go over all of these guys with a fine-tooth comb to try and make sure that there's a lot of diversity of the moves, so that it isn't just that rock'em sock'em robot punch, punch back, punch back. like the best example of that is like the original Nintendo Pro Wrestling game, Starman, you know, Amazon, King Slender, all that crew and stuff, right? There was a lot of that in that game. And that while that was a really fun game to play for its day, I mean, the variety of moves and stuff like that, whereas a lot of the guys they all had the same punch. They all had that same spin kick. You know what I mean? So it's like I wanted to like definitely double down on keeping that repetition to a minimum as much as possible. Because again, this thing is going to be playing by itself. I won't have any influence or decision making on what moves the game decides to use. I mean, I can set up the menu, of course, but I can't necessarily, pinpoint which moves it's going to choose from, that selection of menus and stuff like that. So I can at least kind of segregate those moves so that, guys that are cruiserweights or light heavyweights can do the more high flying moves and stuff. Now, also, I do have to really work on that one right there, because little bitch ass is not supposed to have that many attribute points. So let's fix that right now. All right, so I can see here that I have worked on it, so this must have been something that I did on purpose here. But I think one of the things I'm going to do here is I got to turn you got to turn his strength down, because he is not a strength guy. He's got really good agility. He's got really good movement speed. And his specials are kind of high. So let's turn him down. So I want them to hit kind of hard when they do, but I don't want them. All right, so let's see what this gets us down to here. Trying to figure out like the aggregate number and stuff that all dropped down. I mean, LBA is definitely like a tenured guy in the MVWF, but you can see like Kid Christian here has like 46, right? And I want to go back to like back in the day when I think it was about the late in the GameCube days and stuff when I created Little Bitch Ass. I wanted to create a jobber character that wrestled all the time. Again, taking losses and stuff like that. Somebody who went out there and, somebody could do like, all right, so I've got a guy that could be just, a tackling dummy for somebody that I just introduced, so they can get a big win on their first match and stuff like that. So, but the thing is that like the LBA days and stuff like that had kind of a caveat attached to it as well, because if you lost a match to LBA, you retired. And he lost like 13 straight matches, with like the latter 2/3 of them being like these fucking nail biters and stuff, because even with like a minimum amount of attribute points, he would go out there and just tear it up. He would go out there and just do what he could do, and if he went for a cover on something, I mean, it would be the kind of thing that would totally kind of freak you out a little bit, like especially if you were the one that was in the ring with him. In fact, Brandon Bones wrestled him in that latter 2/3 and stuff like that, and came very close to losing his career over it. Now, granted, I mean, when you're talking about a character like Brandon Bones, I definitely would have come up with some convoluted wrestling explanation to bring him back. But one guy definitely did lose his career. This guy, Johnny Nyes, wrestled exactly one match in the MVWF, and it was the very first win of Little Bitch Ass's career, and Little Bitch Ass is around and Johnny Nyes is not. From there, weirdly enough, there was like a weird sort of like karmic kind of momentum thing. And I am a big believer in kind of the karma of the MVWF as well, because not to get too far off track, but everybody that has come in to create their guy, to put some work in on it and stuff like that. Like Kevin had some, when he was here the other day, he had some say in how his, some changes he wanted made to his guy. Jeremy's got some say in his guy and stuff like that, as does Dan Crane right now. He wanted to get rid of like the poofy sleeveless jacket. He wanted to wear shorts when he wrestled, stuff like that. And it's funny how like, when somebody makes a big life change and stuff like that, and like in real life, or if they get their fingerprints on their character and stuff like that, all of a sudden their character's fortunes change, So anyhow, I forgot what I was talking about right there. I definitely got off track there. But I think what I'm going to kind of reset here, I want to talk about booking a little bit here too. So let's go on over to Universe Mode. Now in Universe Mode, editing shows, there's not much really to see here. I have learned a lot over the years and stuff as far as how to like use the calendar to create shows and things like that. Whereas in like years past and stuff like that, I have definitely dropped the ball in my understanding of what a lot of this stuff can do for you and stuff like that. Because again, I didn't know that if I had like a PLE here and stuff like that, I could actually make it like I could actually give it like about 14 matches if I wanted to, and really make like a WrestleMania style show out of it and stuff. I'm not gonna save this, but that's something that I've improved on over now. As far as like the manipulating of what we've got here, like so right now this is reflective of the last event. Of course, a lot of you didn't see a couple of the two matches that were there on the right where G-Man Ryan Crawford got upset by Kurt Maple, and holy shit, did the Asthmatic Assassin squash Cube like a grape to win the Cruiserweight title back and stuff. But again, I'm not really too sure what to do with these here and stuff like that as far as compelling it to do cutscenes and stuff. It just doesn't seem to do it very often. So I am looking for some advice on that sort of thing there. So I guess if you want to comment and stuff like that down there, go ahead and let me know if there's a kind of a way to get it to more frequently compel it to do more cutscenes and stuff. So here is the roster. There's Adrian Knight, AJ the Giant, the Amazon, Antonio Brown, the Asthmatic Assassin, Awesome Ron Awesome, Calvin Coolidge, Cube, Dan Crane, Danger Boy. There's Dennis the Take a Hitman from Cobra Kai, The Destroyer, El Hamburguesa, El Sharko, I guess is his name. I couldn't remember his name, even though I put him in that Battle Royal of the last show. Hayabusa, Fisticuffs, George W. Bush. Not a very good George W. Bush. But I am doing the All Presidents Battle Royal there at Manchmania, so that's coming up. You have that to look forward to. There's Hot Liberal Wife. There's Jesus, Jimmy Carter, and so on and so forth. You can see all their attribute points and stuff like that here. Yeah, there's Space Hooker. Space Hooker I made the other day actually out of whole cloth because I was like, I was watching WWE pay-per-view, and I think it might have been the Elimination Chamber thing there, and it was just like everyone's wearing fishnets, everyone's wearing like a hooker outfit, but like a space hooker outfit, and I don't know what this is about. So, all right. So in here, I definitely recommend trying to use the rivalries, because I'll say this much about the rivalry stuff is that you can tell kind of the difference between the way the guys all kind of like behave around one another when they are definitely in the rivalries versus those matches where they are not. They fight a little harder, they fight a little dirtier, they kick out a little bit more and stuff like that. And again, that's really what I want. I want them, fighting kind of like passionately, and trying to eliminate the idea that you are just watching a video game after all. So I'm not going to say that it's totally worthless and stuff like that, but I just couldn't tell you like what making it like a high, high intensity versus a low or a medium intensity, Because if I were to think that, like, based off of the results of the show, that the medium intensity was more than enough to just basically have the assassin roll in and win the Cruiserweight belt in like 2 minutes from Cube, where he absolutely squashed him in a sea of matches that were like, one was like 50 minutes, one was 45 minutes, one was 20 minutes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what to tell you about that, right? So I'm experimenting currently with this stuff, so hang in there with that sort of thing here. But again, I will still use it like when you have matches that on the card that you definitely want to highlight as having perhaps maybe a little bit more intensity than would otherwise. There you can see the result right there. You can see the Assassin won after the 50-minute 8-man tag match. So, yep, there was the result right there. The Assassin beat Cube for the belt. And Too Cool Koito defeated Mark Selesky. A goddamn shame that we lost this match in the broadcast here because... Koito, I mean, man, they used the ladder to absolute perfection in this match, where Koito and smashed Selesky through a ladder. Selesky smashed Koito through a ladder, doing some awesome aerial moves and shit. It was awesome stuff. Damn shame we lost this match right here because it was the upset of the year. Kurt Maple is now 3-2, or should I say 2.5-2? Because he definitely beat the Gi Man. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the tag match there where Doyle and the Hitman defeated Brandon Bones. The Hitman pinned Brandon Bones, put him down hard, and, of course, he's got him at Night 2 at Match Mania. As Crane, it will be challenging Doyle for the MVWF World Championship on Night 1, which is April 7th. And, of course, the Bones Dennis match is on April 14th, which is Night 2. And, of course, don't forget that it's Travis Kelce and the leader of the free world, Taylor Swift, against the married couple of the Crawfords, Gi-Man Ryan Crawford and Hot Liberal Wife. So anyway, I always like to, as far as like my booking philosophy and things, I have a certain approach that I'm ultimately, my goal is to just make it as authentically a television broadcast, as close to it as possible. So, I'll use a lot of images that I'll download to, like, see that end game I totally ganked from somebody's event and arena and stuff like that. But, I mean, they're nice, tailor-made logos that I can use, to give my event, my events something a little bit different to separate itself free and apart from the WWE. I mean, there are really some nice-looking arenas on Community Creations and stuff that totally represent the AEW arenas, looking really, really good. But that being said, stuff like that, again, so go get yourself some images off of the Community Creations. Use titles and phrases and things like that aren't Backlash, aren't Judgment Day, aren't, WrestleMania, stuff like that, I happen to use a lot of them that seem to have like fire, trial by fire, firestorm, shit like that, inferno, stuff like that is stuff that you can always give yourself some hyperbolic titles for your events and things like that. So yeah, I mean, spackle all of that shit on there as much as possible on all of your guys and stuff like that. Make all of the entrances absolutely tailor-made from start to finish from each section. And quite frankly, even if they don't continuity-wise and stuff like that, always set up and stuff like that exactly the way you want, when you're creating them, play a fucking song next to it or whatever when you're doing kind of like the playback to see how it shows up, so that like with the actions on screen, when to start the song and stuff like that. Because again, my channel is not monetized at all, so I just go ahead and use whatever copyrighted material and stuff like that I feel is appropriate. But I do tend to lean on a lot of like independent bands and bands with a lot less reputation. I'll tell you a little quick anecdote. Going back to season 1, I did a Trump versus Obama one-on-one match that wasn't a very good match, wasn't a particularly great idea, quite frankly, and stuff. And then the result of it was also kind of shitty because I gave Obama 99 Problems by Jay-Z as his entrance song, and that is like of the events and stuff like that have been flagged for copyright, that one is straight up, you can't find it if you're not me. That one is straight up fucking just taken right off. Even though I managed to use the YouTube Studio to mute it off of the entrance and stuff. So I don't know what the fuck happened there and stuff like that. But it's YouTube. They suck. Blow me, YouTube. Anyhow. So I hope some of these tips have kind of helped you out and stuff like that, as far as helping you create a sim league, because again, it's more than just sliders. It's more than just it's more than just the creation of the guys and stuff too. It's also your creativity with it and stuff. I mean, these games really give you. I mean, look at this. I mean, look at these creation suites that you have on here and stuff like that. There's fucking 10 of them, from the arena to the show itself, to your entrance, to the look of the superstar, to the moves, the wrestler, the moves that they do, the championships they wear, even their fucking entrance video and stuff like that. Again, historically, these games have been so unstable as far as being able to, to get through every one of my broadcasts. But of course, I'm probably coming up on about like 300 broadcasts at this point. And there's only really like a handful of them and stuff like that. Like, man, like the first few Punishment shows, it was almost like that show itself, like just via the name, it was cursed. That this one that's like broken up into like 3 parts. There's like 2 of them that are broken up into 2 parts. I don't know what to say about this stuff. Because again, like, if I'm doing music, if I'm adding sweetening, I'm producing, I'm doing commentary on things. My attention is divided in a lot of different directions and stuff like that. So, I mean, I basically do it all by myself, and then anybody who sits in and stuff like that, all they have to do is just sit back, watch the screen, and get stoned. So, But yeah, I mean, again, so you want to like try to, create threads to kind of like, weave all of this stuff together. So that there's a continuity to it, so that you eliminate all of the WWE stuff, so that your characters act unique from one another, and you also set up scenarios and stuff like that can create chaos in spite of the fact that you don't really have any control over what really happens. You just build the building blocks and set it on its path, and then the AI takes it from there. And man, I can tell you what, like if you heard me on Colt Cabana's podcast and stuff, where I told the story about Jesus Christ being murdered, if I told you that all of the stories about like the weird coincidences, that like angles that would show up on WWE TV that I did, in the weeks and months prior to all of that stuff, I mean, I'll tell you what, I created the Fight Pit match, and all of a sudden there was a Fight Pit match in WWE, or rather in NXT, I should say. And while I didn't have the platform on top and stuff like that, but it's still knockout and submission, for fuck's sake. So again, staying on the cutting edge of pro wrestling and stuff, having watched it since the rock and wrestling era and stuff, I mean, it's not that hard for me to do and stuff like that, to come up with what is no one doing right now? And whether that means you go retro, whether or not that means you do something classic or something that's a complete wrestling trope, man, these games have totally given it to me over the years. I mean, the evil crooked referees, where they don't call the submissions the way they're supposed to, blind spot to the rope breaks and stuff like that, like all classic stuff. Absolutely nail-biting 2 counts that I, even on the mic and stuff like that, in the moment, stuff like that, was convinced was a 3 count. Where there were times where I moved past the 2 count, thinking that it was still thinking it was a 3. So again, with the right philosophy that you can apply to it, and of course some good creativity both applied to the game and in how you book your shows, and creating rivalries and creating heat and stuff like that. Because man, I'll tell you what. Behind the scenes here, which is something that I really haven't talked too much about yet, because I've been trying to talk about something that's like directly on the screen. The things that you do in the negotiating of matches and stuff like that, because again, you want to give everybody kind of like a chance to to have a say in what doesn't happen to their guy, and that's fair. So you've the reality is I do have a locker room, so to speak, and I have somewhere around like over 20 people, living, breathing people who watch the show, who have a character that they have an invested interest in. And so they are going to want to represent their character in the most thorough way possible. And so, they're gonna play their hand that they're dealt. And in a lot of cases and stuff, one of the things that kind of happens in these situations is that, people will think that there's bias against them, or they'll say that there's cheating going on, or, whatever, someone's being favored and stuff like that. And keeping in mind that, like, a lot of the elements of this is kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing where, me, Brandon Bones, being the owner of the MVWF, I play Damian Andrews on the on the mic and stuff like that. But all of this stuff is filtered through me. And so I can take people's ideas and I can take them or reject them. And sometimes I do have to reject them if it's something that's really not going to be something that's going to work for the show necessarily. But it's the kind of thing that, again, everyone's jockeying for position. And so the more you jockey for position and you do your thing, the more successful the more invested you get, the better your guy will do. It's just kind of how it works. So in that case and stuff like that, when you're building your roster and you've got real people that are represented and you're dealing with all of the egos and they are self-motivated, they have every right to be self-motivated and stuff like that. A lot of times those things will come into conflict. But then again, sometimes those conflicts will create heat for the matches so that in the anticipation of things, things will have some heat applied to it or whatever. So once the match finally plays out, remember how I mentioned earlier on the tag team match with Hardcore Holly, Rock Holly, Nate, and Alex Kindbud. There was legit heat there because Rock Holly couldn't get along with anybody, and him and Nate had some words outside my driveway or whatever because, I don't know, fucking parking or some shit like that. But ultimately, a lot of that fed into the match and stuff like that. And when we found out that Nate had all his guys' stats maxed, it was both blamed on Brandon Bones for not checking it and blamed on Nate for, setting himself up that way or whatever. Because, he would have probably been like, well, I made my guy. He's all ready to go. Okay, Nate, thanks. And then, there was a controversy as far as the result of the match. And in those days and stuff like that, long before the GameCube games, long before a lot of the sliders that you can do, in these games and stuff like that, that seemed to be like everything. It was everything to all of us, that those things had to be absolutely even Steven and stuff like that in order to get, a legitimate result. Again, as we've learned, between the little bitch ass experiment, Kid Christian, local talent has been world's heavyweight champion with about 40 attribute points. So if you think attribute points are the be-all, end-all, you're wrong. You're just wrong. It is not a guarantee that anyone is going to win the match. But, it definitely increases the likelihood, sure. But it's not the be-all, end-all. And a guy with 43 attribute points, he wasn't champion long, but he did win the championship. He won a tournament. Amongst other lower tier guys and stuff like that. Very underrepresented show as far as view counts and stuff like that. The undercard tournament was about 2 years ago or something, and local talent won the tournament and then jacked Dennis to take a Hitman Hart from behind and won, thanks to some rivalry action or whatever that I had taken. So he jumped through the crowd or whatever and then basically stole the title from him. But again, those were some of the tools that the game gave me in order to make an interesting show. So those types of things, those possibilities are out there and stuff. And man, if you've been watching the MVWF because I've been also doing a checklist of all of the special off the map moves that they've finally done. And for the most part, the game has done just about all of them except the Shane McMahon elbow off the top turnbuckle through the announce table. There's also a moonsault version of it or whatever. The game has never done any of that. None of the games have been particularly all that motivated to do anything on the announce table other than just run people into it occasionally. So that's one of those hanging threads that's still out there, though it did do it one fucking time, and it was Abraham Lincoln versus Alex Kindbud back in the 64 days. I couldn't believe it. Again, but the kind of thing that you wouldn't think wouldn't happen all the time, because if you play the game, you're always throwing motherfuckers up on the announce table and stuff and putting them through it, because that's what you do. But the games, whether the 64, the GameCube games, or the current generation of games, none of them seem, the AI does not seem all that interested in doing it, although the 2K24 game sounds kind of has a lot of potential that maybe they might be a little bit more inclined, because nowadays it was only like the last couple of years that any of the games that could compel any of the AI characters to actually climb the Hell in the Cell match, so they would do something up on top there. Granted, the first time that I ever got it to do anything like that, because I'd had a few Hell in the Cell matches that were like that before, you know, they were basically just cage matches, and they just stayed kind of inside, and they never went over to like the corners and stuff like that to break the cage wall so they could exit. But now it does it all the time. But my first idea to try and make that happen, and it did work, was a cage match that I did, but I made it a half-hour Iron Man match in the Hell in the Cell. And that was enough to keep them in the ring long enough and stuff like that, so that eventually somebody could damage the cage enough to exit the cage. And then eventually, once someone walked outside, they climbed the cage and they did some action up on top. And very memorable match, because somebody did get tossed off a couple of times. So all that jibber jabbers got me all tired out and stuff like that. I might do some more videos on this and stuff. It's one that I've been kind of like pondering doing for a fair amount of time now, is just to kind of like share my experience and stuff like that, the intricacies of the ins and outs of booking a wrestling federation, reflective of the advances and limitations that you have of the current round of or generation of video games and stuff like that. So yeah, I might go and try and revisit the Fight Forever game and stuff like that. But man, like, I don't like the character models. I don't like the I made AJ the Giant, I made Brandon Bones on there and stuff like that. I don't like the way that they came out. I don't like how short the matches are. There's a lot less interactive stuff that I can use to kind of like manipulate the behavior of the game and stuff. But this game has just constantly piled on those kinds of things here and stuff. So even though I really don't watch WWE anymore and stuff, it's definitely one of those things. I definitely am sticking with this series of games and stuff like that to facilitate the MVWF. All right, well, if you have any questions in the comments and stuff like that, go ahead and ask and stuff. Like I said, I'll be doing probably some more videos like this in the future. Thank you for joining me. I am Brandon Bones / Damian Andrews and stuff like that. We will talk to you later, probably at Matchmania 666. And remember, Matchmania 666, if I can plug it here on the way out the door, is April 7th for Night 1, which features the Dan Crane-Ryan Doyle World's Heavyweight Championship match, interim World's Heavyweight Championship match, where the winner will go on to face the alleged real World's Champion, Jeremy Love, who never lost the belt in the ring. The game stripped him of the championship, or rather, it designated him as too injured to compete, which was quite the plot twist that was not in my plans. But I felt I had to honor it, considering that I also have to honor the results of all of the matches and stuff like that too. But again, those are the kinds of things that go into it, so that I don't have 100% complete control of it, nor do you want me to, because I am not the tyrant that you say I am. Now also, Night 2 will be the Jeremy, whoever wins the Crane-Doyle match, stuff like that. That will be on April 14th. I'm allegedly having Mark Selesky and Dennis the Take a Hitman Hart in the house for that one. They will be on the mic, and apparently Doyle and Crane will be in attendance, though not on the mic, because they don't do that kind of shit. Anyway, thank you for joining me, folks. I am Damian Andrews / Brandon Bones. Good night.